On this episode of the podcast, I want to welcome Stephen Hummel. For as long as Stephen can remember, his life has revolved around curiosity and the search for meaning beneath the surface. Early on, creativity wasn't just a hobby, it became a way of understanding the world. Stephen is also a recording artist, he's also a producer, and many know him as Subtractive Lad. Stephen's career has been less about traditional job titles and more about an ongoing evolution as an artist. Along the way, he's balanced creativity, mindfulness, fatherhood, and the challenge to continue to grow. Here he is, Stephen Hummel.
You are listening to OverArch.
Mr. Hummel, welcome to this OverArch podcast. Thanks for your time. I don't know who's listening, so it's literally like I don't really talk to the audience because there could just be my mom listening. So hey, mom, how's it going? I'm sure she is. Thanks for joining today. Basically, what this podcast is, I kind of give everyone sort of a rundown of what we're trying to get to. Is I'm talking to people, sort of the career path that they have up to this point, and all those decisions that they made along the way, where they should have went left or went right, and just like, oh, I wonder what would have happened if I did this. But talking to you today, you've got an interesting sort of story because you're a recording artist. So you're Steve Hummel, and you're also under the name Subtractive Lad, correct? So you early on, you probably had this passion for music, and you decided to follow that career. Where some people may, I went to school, I did this and I did that. Now I'm a manager here, then I switched this. So you've got kind of a passion early on, and you've decided to pursue that, which is quite admirable. And I think a lot of people who are listening to this could probably learn something. Like, yeah, if you find that passion early on, really, you've took the chance to go for it. So let's start with sort of where you are today. We can talk a little about your discography, so to speak. You're an acclaimed artist, I'll say. I've known you for quite some time. I've seen you grow throughout the years. How long have we known each other, actually? At least 20 plus years?
Probably close to 30, yeah.
30 years, yeah. We're not aging ourselves there. So Steve, take us to like where you are today with your career as a recording artist, the types of albums you have. You just had a launch too with one of your albums, so feel free and bring that up as well. But where we are today with you, Steve?
Yeah, well, one of the main things was that, as you know, I recently moved out here.
We're in Chilliwack, British Columbia, in the Fraser Valley of British Columbia. Yeah.
So typically I'm pretty prolific. I tend to keep working and release things pretty regularly, sometimes multiple releases in a year. But with the move, this was the first time where I didn't release anything for about a year.
Okay.
Just getting the other place ready to get on the market, and then finding the new place, the whole process of the move, and then building the new studio space. So that was weird. But upon kind of getting things done and set up and everything rolling in the new space, I got pretty inspired and wrote something pretty quickly. So I wrote an album worth of material, and that's what's just come out, basically. And yeah, it seems to be doing pretty well. It was a little bit weird, I think some artists will take years between making things, but
Absolutely.
For me, not. I tend to kind of keep going. And I did have a bunch of things that were started in the old space.
I was going to ask you.
That I'm kind of looking at finishing now. But I just got so into this thing that I was working on in the new space. I just wanted something completely new, using the new setup, basically. So that just came out last week, and it's doing well. I was just on the radio in Germany on a show called Grenzwellen, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
They're pretty supportive of my work over the years, and it's fun to they do a group chat around the radio show. And so I'm able to talk to fans all over the world. And for me, because it's kind of a one-man enterprise, it's kind of me and my little bubble. It's kind of nice to have those opportunities to kind of hear from people and touch base with people and stuff.
See the world, like, hey, there's a world out there. People are listening. Because I'm sure when you're involved in your work, you don't think you're going to be hitting like a few thousand people or tens of thousands. Like eventually, you're like, oh yeah, people are kind of involved. This is exciting. So this is going to be an interesting conversation because, like I said, it's not like, and now Steve today, he's a manager at blah blah blah.
Right.
So you did this move out here, and so when you were you starting from? Did you pick up a few of the projects from the old place, then you came here, kind of felt once the studio is ready, okay, time to finish, or were you inspired with the new location, with the new environment? Like, tell me a little bit about that.
So yeah, I have I guess this would kind of be a time to get into how I work. Without getting into too much of
Absolutely,
a
yeah,
rabbit
please.
hole, but I tend to have a few things going at different stages at the same time. So,
Okay.
and it really, working on music is kind of a funny thing because it's emotional, right? And so it really depends on kind of how you are, what your state of being is, in terms of where you're,
Hmm.
for me anyway, where I can put my energy. And and that can change from day to day. Sometimes the more ambient kind of, that's where I'm at. I want to kind of, this is what I'm able to kind of work on. Some of
Yeah.
the things I work on are 10, 20 minutes long. You've got to be in a certain mental headspace to be able to kind of go there. And I'm not always there. So there's other things that, sometimes I'm doing the more energetic things. I tend to have a few different things that I'm working on, and some of them are further along than others. So sometimes I'll be mastering something, I'll be mixing another thing,
Okay.
I'll be starting something else. I'll have a few balls in the air.
Yeah.
It's kind of how I go. And so I had a bunch of things kind of at different stages from the last space. And that was my initial idea, was to pick those things up when I got into the new space. But and I kind of wrote this in the blurb for the new album. When I was finally at the stage where I was plugging all of my gear in, I've been doing this for 20 plus years. And so I've accumulated quite a bit of stuff over the years. I'm fortunate in that respect, where I have a lot of synths, a lot of guitars and
I
stuff.
can contest. I've seen the studio. It's fantastic.
Yeah. And so in this particular situation, it was plugging all the synths in. I hadn't really been able to sort of use them or even see them. They were all in boxes for months and months. And for me, again, that's pretty weird. I'm usually, in my element. I have,
Yeah.
anyway. So for whatever reason, the whole process of moving took time. And well, the market really is what it was. I think that's a whole other thing. But
Yeah. Yeah.
we were fortunate enough to sell and then get this place. And but when I got everything set up, it was kind of like, oh, I love this. Oh, I love this thing. And oh yeah, I
Oh, nice.
and
You
what
rediscovered a lot of it.
kind
Things?
of, it was
Okay.
almost like Christmas again, where you're sort of, it's my old stuff, but it's like opening it again, right?
Okay.
And what I kind of realized is like this, especially the hardware, I got all of these things because they all um, sonically represent something that I'm interested in. So I tend not to buy things that repeat themselves. So every synth or every guitar does something. I'm not one of these guys that collects just Stratocasters.
I
and
see.
they've
Yeah,
got
that
like
makes
different years.
that makes
Every
sense.
every guitar has different pickups. Everything kind of does something slightly different, and the synths are all that way too. And I realized that if I did an album that used everything, it would kind of be an interesting snapshot of my taste, kind of like where.
Oh, and your growth too, right?
Yeah,
You're
yeah,
starting
yeah.
from day one here. Here it is, right? It's this culmination.
Yeah, and also revisiting in this album a style that I don't always go back to these days. Like these days, I'm probably more known for my more kind of ambient guitar-driven stuff. That's the stuff that seems to get the most plays. But
Yeah.
but what originally put me kind of on the map was this more glitchy IDM sound, this kind of really electronic, granular, chopped up kind of rhythm stuff. And that's kind of, I wanted to show where I was with that now. So in other words, I've got things 20 years ago that I did, but what would I do with that now, using the gear that I have and where I am in my life.
Interesting. Because this question I've got a question, some prep work on you here, and this one just popped up. So it's just perfect segue. So how does this chapter feel now compared to the first one when you started?
Yeah.
What's that feel like? Take your time, like on that one.
Yeah. So something that I might do in the next few days is do a playlist that sort of maybe shows some of that. So I think that's something that I'm going to do.
Oh,
Where
that'd be cool.
it'll kind of show the beginnings and the whole sort of in that style. And I tend to do that. So if I release something, I'll make a playlist of, well, here's what I've done over the years in that style.
Oh, that's smart.
And with this one, I'm thinking, I'm going to look back and kind of do some of that. It's cool. What I think the thing that strikes me the most is the tools are so much better now. Like they're so much more evolved to do some of the things that I do now. There are plugins, there are studio effects that kind of can do these stutter effects and a lot of this granular editing that I do. And so it's made it more creative and expansive. But back in the day, when I released my first album in 2005, so I would have been released, working on it in 2004.
Yeah.
I literally had to chop things up in the timeline. I was doing everything manually. So I was doing manual edits of things in a micro way.
Yeah.
So don't have to do that so much now because there's the people who developed this software heard what we were doing back in the day.
Okay.
And basically said, we can make this easier,
So is that something you would enjoy? I've got another question here. What you enjoy now versus earlier in your career? Is that something that you've adopted? Like, okay, this is allowing me to be a little more creatively free. Because I know, like, I do video editing for a career as well. And back, there is some manual things to do. There are some tools now that really, like subtitling, for example.
Yeah.
That used to be listen and type. And there are
Yeah.
people you would send your audio file to, and they would get back to you in 5 days. And here's your closed caption file. Now it's click, click, boom.
Yeah.
I'm going to make that bold, and then it's here. So in your example, are you finding there's tools now that are set up for you to just sort of get rid of the mundane, the stuff that has to get done, but it's just allowing you to be more creative? Or is that how you look at it?
It extends it. That's kind of what it
extends
is. So
it, yeah.
you can kind of do some of those things on steroids. And that's what's really neat is you can kind of go, well, if only I had that back then, I could have like stretched this thing out. And it, again, I guess that brings up a whole other thing is sometimes you look back at, you go through different phases, actually, I should say, when you've been doing it as long as I have. Sometimes you will look back at something more recently, maybe with some, I wish I did that a little bit differently, or I would have edited that differently or mixed it differently. But sometimes when 20 years goes by, some of those little things fade away a little bit more, and you almost look at it with sort of a freshness, or maybe, you think, well, some of those naive decisions or things that I did, you sort of stumbled into something that was actually pretty good.
Yeah.
So you can kind of look at it a little bit more objectively. And that's the other thing. I know we maybe want to go back into how I got into all this stuff.
Oh yeah, no, I've got a 3-act play here happening. So go ahead, keep going.
But yeah, some of that stuff is kind of about how I tend to work. I guess maybe we will sort of get into that a little bit in terms of how I sort of got to where I am.
Well, here's my question then. So going back in time, I've got like, let's go back to when you first got started. Like, there's a young person, you grew up in British Columbia, and at what age did you kind of realize, you're probably listening to some music? I mean, we all inspired at one point in time, oh my God, the first time I heard the Beatles or the Led Zeppelin or these classic rocks or the 80s, and you're like, I'm really inspired. You got some interesting influences in your music and who you listen to, similar to me. And like when you first heard that music, or take me back to then when you're like, oh, what is this? What is this? Do you have recollection of that?
Oh yeah. So I was actually born in Ontario.
Oh, cool. I did not know
Northern
that.
Ontario, a small place called Atikokan. And then when we moved out to BC, I was about 5. So it was kind of going into kindergarten. But I can remember even, so both places, small towns. So I kind of grew up in small town environments. And the first Atikokan being a little bit more remote, actually. And then Logan Lake at least being closer to Kamloops and having kind of a city close-ish, but small town guy, right? I can remember though, even in Atikokan being, so my dad was always into music. My mom too, but my dad would even do, I think it was called Party Sound or something like this, where he would, so he always worked, he was in mining,
Yeah.
but I remember he would do this thing called Party Sound where they would do events or parties, that, kind of a DJ thing. And he
Oh,
would,
wow.
and from this, he would have speakers and sound systems and some lights, and
Oh, right on.
sometimes this stuff would be in the living room. And I can remember, again, dating myself, we're similar age.
We
So
are,
we
yeah,
grew up
yeah.
kind of, 70s, 80s, which, it's great, some great dance music anyway.
Yeah.
Let's say disco era into funk, into hip hop, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
I can remember though having my dad set up. He had one of these lights that would go to the music. It was like a beat light.
What?
So we kind
Even
of,
back then they had those?
yeah,
Oh, that's cool.
so very, I had some kind of sensor, and
Okay.
it would, in this very 70s kind of way.
And like good for him because I know we didn't have Amazon back then, right? This was specialty stores to get this type of equipment. So
It was the whole,
Wow.
it was the whole Party Sound was his company, I think. It was like a DJ service or
oh,
something.
okay,
like this.
okay.
Anyway, I think that's what it's called. And I just remember being able to kind of blast some of the disco stuff and dancing around the living room with
Yeah.
this light that would kind of go to the music. And I thought that was fantastic,
Yeah.
And moved to, getting a bit older into small town BC. And it was similar, I started discovering music that was interesting to me, instead of just the stuff that your parents listened
Yeah,
to. And
yeah.
then, again, I think from early on, music always kind of affected me pretty deeply, to the point where I couldn't help but dance around. And that was my first kind of means of expression. I was really into dancing, and I got into hip hop and like breakdancing.
Yes. Yeah.
When I was kind of preteen, early 80s kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So imagine, small town, white kid, rural BC,
Yeah.
seeing on TV. This is also the age of Michael Jackson and all that
Yeah.
stuff, right?
Yeah. Well, I
But-
remember you'd have to find your block of cardboard.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. And
Yeah.
then carry that around.
Yeah, so you go to the grocery store, they'd have a refrigerator or something delivered, and you'd be like, score,
Yeah.
right? Bring that home.
I forgot you just throw a piece of cardboard on anywhere, literally, and just start
But
backspinning.
it's just got to be big enough.
Yeah.
So got into all that, and then was a sponge for anything that I could get from the outside world. I mean, of course, this is before the internet and
Yeah.
all of that. And small town BC, you don't really have magazines that get into hip hop culture or
Yeah.
whatever. And
Absolutely.
so I would try to, whether it was TV or, sometimes in Kamloops you could find a tape. I remember this one breakdance tape where you open, remember you would fold out the covers?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it had some of the moves,
Yeah.
right? So you could kind of look, okay, and it broke it down.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Yeah. There's no YouTube videos to instruct, which is great for today for kids because I got to learn how to do a kickflip ollie on a skateboard.
Yeah.
Oh, I wish I had that information or how to do a head spins. Those were for the elites, but
Yeah, so I fully got into that stuff. And there was a couple other kids, but I think for the most part, people thought it was a little bit weird. But interesting and kind of fun to see. And so I got invited to do like community events. So if there was some
wow.
kind of fundraiser or if there was like a school concert or whatever, I'd perform. I'd dance. I'd do this kind
Holy
of
cow, okay.
freestyle, like
Okay.
dancing. This would smuggle me into the local pub and do like a fundraiser thing, talent
Steve, I had
show.
no idea. So you were you were
I was
serious.
fully into it.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I think what was interesting about that is it really kind of it internalized music. Maybe that's not how you say it, but it was a way of physically expressing how the music made me feel. And so the next thing that was interesting is I had a couple teachers, it's fantastic. Teachers shape people's lives. Like you just cannot even
100 million %.
So-
I
so
agree.
I had a couple, one in grade 6, John Larson, who saw what I was doing with the hip hop stuff. And I think he knew, he's a jazz guy, and he
Oh,
knew
okay.
he knew things that I can see now, you know, but guys like Herbie Hancock who did Rocket and all, you know, things that sort of were part of that breakdance culture.
Yes.
So Herbie was like bebop guy, like he was, you know, and he's still alive and he's still incredible. And he's just had so many eras and things that he's done that have been so impactful over the years.
Every
Anyway,
generation.
every generation.
Even today. Yeah. It's amazing.
So this teacher basically said, you know, if you like that, you got to check out this, you know, and he saw
Okay.
the improvisational things that I was doing. He said, when you go to high school next year,
Yeah.
you got to look into improvising, you know, listen to Charlie Parker. I'm going to give you some tapes kind
Wow.
of thing, right?
Okay.
And I want you to check this stuff out. And that kind of blew my mind because that was my into making music in a way that kind of was interesting to me. And I guess where I'm connecting things is that improvisational
Yeah.
thing that I used to do with the dance.
Okay.
I figured out that people do this with the music.
Okay.
So you're not only just
Boom.
Yeah. doing music that you got to read off the page. You can do this thing where you just do what feels right to you. Right?
Was there a moment there when like, did you have an aha moment, or was it like a week-long thing? Like, okay, this is like, take me back there, Steve. Like, what was that transition?
I think it was even that conversation. So he was telling me about this, and
Oh,
I
cool.
kind of went like, "Oh, this sounds far out. Like this sounds amazing." And then started listening to some of these things, and it wasn't just him. So when I got into high school,
Yes.
I did pick up the sax,
Yeah.
and kind of, you know, had Charlie Parker and some of these guys in the back of my head. Of course, didn't really understand what they were doing because it was so miles ahead of when you first start
Oh, yeah.
out
Yeah.
at something.
Yeah.
But just the idea that you could hear them expressing themselves in the moment, you know. And then I had a couple of teachers that were really good at kind of fostering that, you know, when I got into high school. And actually one of them was a French teacher who was also a jazz guy. And he would give me tapes too. Oh, check out Thelonious Monk. Check out this. And I had guys that would make me tapes, you know.
Well, you must have been just bring it
man.
on, because it's like, as a teacher, you always want to help those who are like, hey, if you're really interested in this, I've got some stuff, as opposed to just going, whatever. I mean, it sounds like you were like, yeah, let's sponge. I'm Mr. Sponge here, and let's give it to me.
I tend to be one of these people that kind of really gets into things.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, you know, I get kind of tunnel vision about stuff a little bit. And yeah, you know, was able to, through stage band and stuff in high school,
Yeah.
you know, you learn the charts and you learn to play, but there was always a section where you could just riff, you know.
Oh, okay.
So that's how jazz works. You usually do, you know, the theme, and you start and you melodic stuff and you set it up, and then you take that chord structure and you can just spill your heart out on top of that, right?
Wow.
And everybody takes a turn, and you kind of, and that's kind of jazz, right?
So when that was happening, that must have been just a blast.
A blast. And so I you know, that's the stuff that I really kind of dug into. And then people started seeing that. And what was kind of cool is we would do concerts, and people would show up to the school concerts that didn't even have kids in school. There'd be like all the old farts, and
Oh, wow.
everybody, you know, would fill the gym, right? And it would be like, because and what was neat is I think everybody kind of vibes off of each other. So it was pretty cool in that, because we were such a small town.
Yeah.
We still were able to send quite a few musicians to things, even at the provincial level. Like there was a few of us that went into the provincial honor band, honor choirs, you know, came down to Vancouver.
Oh, wow.
From small town Logan
Okay.
Lake. And so everything got kind of elevated for a while there.
Sounds like a great program too.
And just great teachers, right?
Yeah.
And so we just all kind of vibed off of each other. And there's been, it's pretty neat. There's been a few people from my cohort there that have been able to take music into their life, whether it's playing in the symphony or
Okay.
being in a signed band as a drummer.
So when you're in stage band here in high school, let's say now we're sort of about to graduate. What was that feeling like? I mean, music's an amazing thing because you're going to take it with your whole life, right? Whether you're a professional, you're going to make money off of it.
Yeah.
It's a lifelong language, really. What were you feeling then? Graduation? Did you then go to the university, college? What was that transition like for you? And was it like, no, music's in me, I'm going to take it and we're going to see where this goes. What was that like at that transition?
The other thing I was into was reading and writing. I was into writing in high school, and I'm not so much into the actual writing now, but reading, yes, I'm a huge, like, I think you've seen my books. It's a little out of control.
Yeah.
But so my initial idea was to have the music as kind of a background thing. I didn't really see, because it was mostly jazz that I was exploring at that time. I didn't really see a way forward career-wise for me that way. So I actually worked real hard in grade 12 and got a scholarship to actually what was Caribou College at the time in Kamloops. So I got a scholarship and went there with the idea to do creative writing and probably journalism, something like that. And did well in the first year. Ended up, I won't get into too many personal details, but I ended up moving to Kelowna and wanting to transfer following a relationship. And
that's part of the career move too, right? Like it's something,
various things. Anyway, but what ended up happening is I ended up working, moved to Kelowna, ended up working and not able to get a student loan for the second year to fund it all. Long story short, ended up working and sort of dropping school. But in that process, wound up with a few guys. I was waiting tables and working retail and doing stuff.
And your standard, like just, I hear you.
But there were some guys that were music guys, and that kind of reinvigorated some of the stuff. So we would work nights and then go jam at someone's house, guitar, sax, whatever. We just kind of riff on things. So that was fun. We would, and kind of not in a serious way, but just kind of reignited some of that kind of, this is something that I can't really give up. This is something.
Well, something puts that excitement, like, hey, we're going to do this tonight. It gives you that sort of motivation.
Yeah. So then what ended up happening is I eventually, long story short, ended up being able to move down to the coast after a few years. And with the idea that I was going to work to somehow do music.
Okay.
So, I would find work and move to the big city and be able to kind of build something musically, and whether it was, and kind of did that.
Yeah.
So, I ended up working retail and unfortunately sold my sax to get, sampler at a drum machine and,
Sad days.
Yeah. So I never got a sax again. I kind of miss that still to this day. But maybe
was it tenor, alto?
Alto.
Okay.
And they're so expensive now to get a good one. Maybe I will. But anyway, started and.
So you're down at the coast here. So I want to try and bring us to like you now recorded your first album. Is it too soon to kind of get into that? Because now that you've sold your saxophone, you've got. Okay, I hear something's brewing here with you, Steve. So go ahead.
I built
moving.
a small little bedroom studio in
there it is.
In the apartment. So it was a 2-bedroom kind of one of these high rises right downtown. My friend Rob.
Yeah.
And had minimal gear but just started kind of making electronic music.
Okay. So what did you have at that point? You had your synths. What else?
I had a big, so a K2000 with a sampler.
Okay.
And then I had a MC303 back in the day, which is this little groove box. That might have been it. And then some recording gear, speakers, and microphones, and some discs. And back then it was pretty rudimentary. I would use the K2000 to sample things and kind of map drum sounds and other things.
So Steve, what was that like when you plug them in? Like I'm not a keyboard inclined. I strum on the guitar here, but you're discovering all these sounds. What's popping off in your head as that's happening, or what was happening there?
There was a huge explosion in electronic music at that time. So this would have been This would have been mid 90s, right? 95, 96, 97. This is when rave culture.
Yes.
So rave was there. Sharon was kind of into raving.
Yeah. Sharon is
Uh,
your significant other.
yeah.
We know her.
And
Or I
so,
know her, yeah.
and so, we had that in common in terms of the electronic music. Although I tend to always have been more attracted to things that were not so um, simplistic.
Yeah.
So I started being attracted to what was going on in England and Warp Records.
Well, you take. I mean, I hope everyone has a chance at the end of the show, and I'm going to put in the descriptions too, is how to find your music.
Mm.
They're really journeys,
Yeah.
100%. So when I listen to them, it's better when I have headphones on and I'm just immersed in it, and they are absolutely soundscape journeys. And that's you're not just you're not out going like dropping the hammer.
No.
It's more. I think hopefully you get more people listening to your music after this. But like I said, my mom will. I know that much, but sorry, go ahead. So we're in the 90s, and that was kind of the era of that.
You've touched on something which relates to before we went backwards, like how I how I see myself, I guess, as an artist. And it's part of sort of what emerged, I guess, at that time, which is what I'm most excited about is creating those worlds of sound where some people are performers and songwriters. I see myself more as like closer to something like a painter or a sculptor.
Yes.
Where I am taking things musically and putting them in space and over time, building something up that I would then show to people without the idea of necessarily performing it. So these are things that take months sometimes to kind of craft and build up, and you're building a world of sound. And this is what I realized excited me. So even back then with the rudimentary gear, that was part of what I was excited about doing, was being able to kind of build these little worlds of sound. And what I started doing was there was a place called Deviate, which was a couple blocks down. Remember Deviate?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
And they had, I used to basically go around and ask people if I could play at different places. And I would, and
did you have some songs already crafted? You just kind of
but
show
this
up
wasn't
with
isn't what came to be Subtractive Lad. Well, I guess it would have been the very early stuff, but it would be whatever I was coming up with in my bedroom there. And Deviate liked what it was enough that they gave me kind of residency. So
that's cool.
I was able to kind of play there pretty regularly.
And we went to some shows when I first met you. Yeah, that was cool.
So I'd set up in the corner.
Yeah.
I met all sorts of interesting people, and that led to me working at Creamware, which is this German company that developed hardware and music software, because the CEO of the company was talking to me out the window because I played by the window, he was anyway.
Just whispering in your ear, hey.
Well, I had people do this all the time, because they always want to come talk gear. This is how these guys think, right? People who are into synthesizers. I think a lot of the time when you go to shows, it's so much about the gear as it is about the artist.
About the artist,
They want to say, oh, how long have you had that? It's like, dude, I'm trying to concentrate here. Telling me all this stuff about, oh man, we're developing this software that does synthesizers on the computer, and we're going to be able to like move. And at the time, this wasn't a thing.
No.
So I thought this guy was crazy. Another one, because it was kind of an interesting part of town too, right?
Yeah.
But no, it ended up being a real thing. And, within a couple of years, I was down at the NAMM show in Anaheim showing this stuff off to people.
Were you Subtractive Lad at that point? Did you come in it? No. Okay.
No, so we're getting there. So, and that's actually where I met Shahin too.
Yes.
Our good friend.
I'm going to have him on this too. Yeah. I'd love to sit. He's got a fascinating story, and he loves to tell them. So
and
I'll reach out to him.
We had a shared bond over certain music, and anyway, so that became another lifelong kind of connection.
Make sure I forget that. After this, make sure you reach out to him and say what you did, and tell him to I'll connect with him through.
Yeah. So that ended up being a thing. I worked as a product specialist, is what they called it. People would email me or connect with me to when they had, it wasn't so much tech support. It was more like pre-sales. So if there were things like, I'm curious about this, and then I would pass it along to the salespeople, and I would do demonstrations.
I see. Okay.
Shows and this kind of stuff.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, kind of cool. And then, but what ended up happening is all sorts of internal problems, et cetera, with this company. Um, Most of it went back to Germany. Office kind of ended up minimizing. And I had all this hardware and things, knowledge, but no longer needed to do the job that I was doing.
Okay. At this point, Steve, we're just to interject here really
Mm.
quick. The feeling of, okay, you're kind of in the industry. You
Mm.
know, this is your job you're doing. Like,
Yeah.
what was that like as a young guy? Like, okay, I'm doing something that I really enjoy.
Yeah, suddenly I was at a show and there's Prince. And there's, I'm on the phone with guys for 9 Inch Nails. I'm on the, suddenly I'm talking to one of my bosses is this big time from the States, a great sax player. You're dealing with, suddenly you're in a kind of the bigger leagues.
Yeah, of the artists too, right?
The
Like,
artists
yeah.
And, and the technology was pretty cool and opened up a lot of things. And so what I'm getting to is it led me to people like John Bowen, who I met, and he's a major guy in the synth industry.
Okay.
Helped develop things like the Prophet 5, a lot of iconic synthesizers throughout the years. And I ended up kind of learning a lot from him about how synthesis works. And he, at the time, was designing some of the actual synth plugins, working with the team anyway to sort of, develop these emulations of existing famous synthesizers.
Yeah. Okay.
and
But
stuff.
through the digital
Yes,
format,
yeah.
right? Okay.
And then also developing new ideas. And then I realized, well, I'm super interested in this. I'm going to try to do some of this myself, and started doing that, building my own, because that was part of that system is you could build this stuff when you learn the kind of visual programming language.
Okay.
And I did that. I started learning this stuff.
Oh, okay.
And learn how to do the graphic design things. I was working with John on that stuff too, and started building these things. And then to promote these things, to sell them, because I started selling them online, I would do music. And then I started getting interest in the music. So people would say, oh, you should release this. Like, I like
Okay.
with this thing that you did with this. You ever think of, and I thought, okay, maybe there's something to this,
Yeah.
And by then I had computers and powerful, at the time, DSP boards that ran this, state of the art synthesizer
Yeah.
software. And I was, providing plugins to Hans Zimmer's studio. Again, guys like Charlie Clouser from 9 Inch Nails used a couple of my things. Some things were happening that were
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
And,
What was that as a young person there going through? Like, that's kind of, I mean, obviously there's work to, but I mean, you got to stop for a moment and go, holy crap.
It's cool. And maybe what it was is it gave me confidence to do what I did next, which is to put stuff together and to send it out, and ended up ultimately getting a record deal with a label down in Oakland called M5MD.
Yeah.
So ended up getting a deal in the sort of, mid 2000s, and off
So
we
when
go.
when you launched that, was it, okay, I am Subtractive Lad now?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
So
that-
they said, hey, you got to get a name or something or
Yeah,
whatever.
it was kind of, I sent it out with that. And again, people of that era were kind of, I think of Richie Houghton doing Plastic Man, and there were these alter ego kind of names that people, or Aphex Twin, or,
Yeah,
like, and that was kind of it. He's sort of an alter ego name. If I were to have come up now, I probably wouldn't have done something like that. But
Yeah.
there were even a couple of times where I've tried to drop the name just because it's like, oh, do I need to do this?
Yeah.
But it's kind of taken on a life of its own, so I've had to kind of stick with it.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like your alias.
It's my thing now.
It's your thing. Yeah.
And so, that was the beginning of Subtractive Lad as it sort of was. And I released several albums, I think 6 or 7 with them, and then kind of saw how the industry was changing and decided to go out on my own to kind of take it back.
Yes.
And just because the returns were diminishing, I could see that. And with things like streaming on the horizon.
Okay. Did you see sort of streaming? I mean,
I actually did an article. You can look back. I actually did an article sort of predicting what might happen.
Oh, wow.
Before it happened.
Whoa. Okay.
And I said, if somebody's smart, they're going to do this. And it was basically what Spotify ended up doing.
Whoa, yeah.
So you can look, I think it was the big takeaway. It was one of the interviews that I did back in the day. And they were asking me about that. And I said, this is what's going to happen, because this was when pirating was huge, right? Everybody was
Napster,
pirating everything in Napster. Or
LimeWire.
all that stuff. And so I said, well, somebody's just got to do this, but, have a way to kind of, and they did it, but of course, in a way that benefits them and the major record. That's a whole other thing.
Well, it's true. Yeah, but it's true. Yeah, no, you can touch on it a little bit if you like, but yeah, but it's a whole other topic.
It's a whole other topic.
But you've really found, I mean, you'll say this, I know sort of the story here, but you've really taking it amongst yourself to, okay, this is how I have to produce now with streaming in place. I mean, maybe we're jumping too far ahead, but so now that you've sort of released several albums, and you're a unique individual too, Steve, because you have done how many albums to date?
I don't know. It's 50 plus. It's like,
So,
I have something like 400 pieces of music or something like that.
It's incredible. So when you release albums, it's a fascinating journey that you take. So as you've been sort of, now you're in the industry, you're meeting some really cool, it's neat to hear that you were inspired. Like you kind of have that confidence level, like, yeah, you know what, maybe I should be doing this. And that's a fascinating sort of pivot in a lot of our lives where it's like, yeah, you know what? Maybe I am good at this. Maybe I should do it. So I know people say fake it till you make it, but boy, the imposter syndrome is real, and you're just like, okay, I'll just do it and say like. But there comes a point in your life where, you know what? I think as I get older too, it's like, yeah, what you create is good. I mean, do it for the right reasons, but
okay. So to touch on that, I mean, some of that confidence or whatever came from, people, from feedback, from people actually, feeling deeply what I was feeling deeply. Well, I'll just say this. I've always, coming back to that little guy who was dancing in the living room and everything,
mm-hmm.
I've always connected deeply with music for me, right? It's a personal kind of thing, and an outlet, a way to process emotions and all that stuff. But I do it for me first.
But it's fascinating how, once it connects with someone else,
so this is the thing, and it's actually the closest thing to magic that I think I've ever, really experienced, is because it's so kind of, you can't really explain it. It's an emotion, like I said, it's an emotional thing. It's difficult to kind of say, why does this particular notes in a row evoke a specific, why does it make people cry? Right? Why can it do that? It's just, these are just sounds, right? Why can we? And what's interesting is, even as the musician creating this stuff, it's kind of mysterious and magical. And you hear, like, it's not just me saying this. A lot of musicians will say, when it's really going well, it doesn't feel like you're even making it. It feels like it's basically sort of in some way coming through you.
Yeah.
It's weird. And the music at a certain point in the process tends to kind of start writing itself. So this obviously is your brain doing it, but you start having a dialogue with the music, your brain. So you put certain things down, and then it's like, does it want to go here? Does it want to go there? And you try this. Nope. It sort of rejects it. Does this, how does this? And it becomes
fascinating.
It becomes a whole interesting kind of process to sort of create. And that's the thing that I love the most, that world building, that kind of problem solving. I love it. I love that, the act of sort of creating. And then when you can create something and then you get that feeling. So you listen to it and you go, oh, it makes me.
Yeah.
Then you want to share that feeling. You want to show it to other people and go, do you feel this? Yeah. And when they do, oh my, that's the magic, right?
So it's funny because I looked down at my notes here and I've got a statement here. How do you stay curious after decades of creating? So, I mean, you just spoke to that, but how do you stay I mean, as long as you're living, I mean, the world is we've lived a few years, but how do you stay that creative? So I think I know the answer to this, maybe, but that moment when you shared the music and they felt that's a spark that you can't even, like, nothing can recreate that. So how do you kind of keep that creativity? Are you looking for those moments, or what is it?
You're always looking for those moments, but I tend to, so again, if you look back on my catalog, you'll see that I do a lot of even though it's within usually the instrumental electronic kind of vein, it's pretty wide ranging in terms of the style and genre.
Okay.
So I tend to do something pretty different. And this again gets back to maybe what I was talking about, even on a day-to-day thing. Some days I'll be working on things that suit my emotional state for that day.
Yeah.
But I like to keep busy. I like to keep things kind of going.
Yeah.
I'm always working on something, but usually I'll get to a certain point with something like what happened with this album and I'll see it through. I'll basically kind of have enough energy, enough momentum to kind of push it through within weeks, you know.
Okay.
But sometimes some of these things that I'm working on now, it's been a year plus where it's like start something. Usually the starting point is pretty quick. I can usually sketch out a bunch of things within
Okay.
a week or so, 2 weeks. And then sometimes it's a year of putting things, taking it away, trying this. Okay, I've lost sight of, I built it up, I'm not feeling it somehow. Something's wrong. I've done things where I've built up whole albums and then just been like, oh, this is very frustrating. Like there's something about it I like, but there's something that's not working. And then what I've done is just destroyed it. I've basically taken those mixes and put it through a bunch of distortion or pitch shifted it. And sometimes that's better. Sometimes suddenly there it is. It's like you do something radical to it. And it's like the thing that you loved is still kind of harmonically there. But now, I know sometimes you just got to be bold with the things that you're willing to kind of, or things that you're willing to take out. That's the other thing I've learned is sometimes this precious thing that took you a week to kind of, it's the thing that's not working. And it's just this other thing that's working.
Fascinating.
And you've got to take that other thing and it hurts to take it out.
Yeah.
And build something else around this other thing. And now it's working. So it's just how it is.
So take me, okay. So you have this album, this chronicle of soundscapes, and you've released it. Like, okay, do you have a moment where it's like it's done, but then you have then you're like, we're on to the next one, right? Is there a moment where you just need to sort of emotionally, physically, just take a moment?
I've learned to kind of
just sort of let it. So okay, so that brings me. Maybe I'm getting a little ahead of myself though. Like, because I'm going to ask you a question at the end here about like looking who you are now, advice to that young person growing up. But I won't ask that now. But that's on the horizon. But when you put out that disc, like what's that feeling like of you're obviously uploading it, send whatever that feels like. What is that moment for you like?
Primarily now it's sort of that feeling that I was telling you, like I will only release something. Well, I mean, looking back, there's definitely things that were stronger and maybe not so strong, but I tend to release things that I feel at the time pretty strongly about. So things that I kind of, there's a bunch of things that get shelved and maybe recycled into other things and things that I won't release. I release things because I feel connected to it enough where I want other people to hear it too, where it's like, I want to share that, whether it's some, and it's not always the same thing. Like, so in other words, some albums are heart wrenching and emotional in a kind of deeper sort of way, but others are just more maybe physical and exciting. So maybe there's some things that I've done that are lighter emotionally, but have a kind of physicality about them, something and I want to share that. So there's usually something where I'm like, I hope people feel that, so it's not always the same thing that I'm trying to communicate, but it's something
interesting.
And and so getting back to your question, that's what it is. It's, I want to share this thing that I feel with others, and hopefully they will feel that. And the coolest thing, streams happen and money or whatever, but the most amazing thing is when you get messages from people that are sort of profound. Like, I get emails once in a while from listeners who, say beautiful things like, you're this album I listened to over and over again when I was trying to quit drugs, or this helped my girlfriend, I got to tell you, because she was so depressed. And literally I get these kinds of messages once in a while out of the blue. not all the time, but enough of them where, and those are the things that sort of stick out where it's like, holy crap, like, it's not only important to me, but it's important to other people, you know?
Amazing.
And that's the magic again. It's like, these are just sounds. I've made like sounds that people take into their lives and it helps them maybe in some way, or, you know, or it becomes part of their life in some way. And that's cool.
It's
you
the
know?
coolest. I mean, if you look at music, we're vibrations ripping through the air
Yeah.
at certain different frequencies. They get into our molecules, they vibrate us in a way, and we create I mean, if we want to break it down, it is unbelievable. It is magic.
Yeah.
It has to be. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, you put on a good music or whatever, you're going to feel, right?
Yeah.
You're going to move. Oh, why is my body moving in this certain way? Right? It's fascinating. I mean, that's a whole other research.
So I'll just say this.
yeah, go ahead.
As a composer,
Yes.
and I wish, and so we could get into a whole thing about AI too, and I'll just say this.
Yeah.
This is what AI and the whole argument about it sort of misses.
Okay,
is
please.
that-
Yeah, cool.
Is that, so AI is going to get to the point where they're going to be able to emulate pretty much anything. It's already almost there where you're not going to be able to tell, you know, someone's going to be able to take an algorithm, you know, put a prompt into a music software and emulate me for sure.
Yeah.
But what that misses is that the magic is in the doing. So for artists, all that stuff shouldn't really matter. I mean, it matters in terms of maybe competing with things that are garbage, you know, fake or whatever. And
Yeah.
now it's polluting the marketplace.
Yeah.
But as an artist, the magic is in the making. So those moments that you were saying about listening and having that stuff, imagine what it's like to make something.
Yeah.
So you do one thing, and this happens all the time where you write certain, you know, your chords, and I try to not overthink it. That's the other thing, where I have a certain amount of theory knowledge, but I try not to kind of, it's back to that improvisational thing. So
Yeah.
even when I'm writing,
Yeah.
I'm usually feeling it. So it's
Yeah.
like this note wants to kind of go to this thing and this. So this is kind of how I write. I write by feel. I feel it out. So I'm not thinking about it in terms of
Yeah.
C sharp should go to D and this should, I think, okay, so this shape, this feels like it should go up to here and that should go to there. That's literally what it is. I'm feeling my way through things at every level. And we have a visitor.
Hi, Margaret. Yeah, we got our dog. That's okay. She'll settle down here,
And
but yeah.
Hello, my dear. Hello, my dear. And what? Oh, I hear your tail. What ends up happening is
I think she broke down. We're filming in a basement suite here, and upstairs we've got our Margaret, the golden retriever. She's very happy to see Steve, as am I.
what ends up.
I just don't wiggle my tail and start to, you know.
You can do that too if you want. Okay, sit.
Margaret, come here, sweetie. It's okay.
What ends up happening is you can actually do the.
Yeah, she's a
Is that right?
funny one. It's okay. I'll probably just leave all this in.
That's the best part.
I know.
The magic is in even as a musician, when you do things that you don't really expect.
Yeah.
So
absolutely, yeah.
sometimes this will turn into this, or you'll add something, or you'll take something away, and you'll get those kind of moments where it's like even you being the creator kind of go, oh, you know, sometimes it's weird. It can even just be like changing where it is in the mix or EQing it slightly, and
Yeah.
suddenly it kind of goes and everything fits, and you
Yeah.
go, oh, and it's weird how things like that can just change the emotional.
It's quite similar with video editing. There's a lot of things
Color
where it's
grading
not
or
color
whatever,
grading,
right?
or you just add a layer or a tweak, and you're just going, it pops, or you take a
proper edit, right?
proper edit. It just
Yeah.
kind of, and a lot of, I mean, I'll be honest with you, a lot of things, I don't know if they're happy mistakes, but they're not deliberate. It's just the feeling of it is, and you kind of like, you get into a zone. Like for my profession, for video editing, it's really, there comes a point where you're just kind of letting it go. And that's kind of the moment that you wait for. Like, okay, I'm here creating now. I'm finally creating, you know, aside everything else you got to do. But that creation process, especially if it's stuff that you are doing, like I've done a few documentaries, when you're editing your content,
Yes.
it is a music similar to what you're going through.
Yes.
100%.
It's
wow.
so in other words, it's the act of creation. So this
Yeah.
can apply probably to anything, whether it's painting, sculpture, film.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's that process, the act of.
So you're right. So going back to AI, 100%.
That's what's missed,
Yeah.
right? You're missing the best part. Like, it's sure, you know, so these people who think, well, I'm going to write my song using a prompt. Well, okay, fine. Maybe you're written some nice lyrics and got AI to do the rest of it, but you're missing that the coolest part, which
Yeah.
is working through the problems and having those moments of magic that happen as a result. You're missing all of that. And I'm telling you, that is, you know, so
That is the
you
moment,
were going to ask me, what advice would it be?
Yeah. So like, let's take a look here. We're almost at an hour. Can you believe that? That's crazy. So looking back in your life, what advice would you give yourself now that you've kind of grown to this point? And
I think just to sort of allow for that. So in other words, to look for those things, to kind of be more aware of those moments, like, and to kind of, maybe I was at some level always kind of aware of it, but I'm more conscious of it now. Like that's the special stuff. And to kind of, there's things that I'll do I guess that are part of the work process now that are sort of build it, like allow for that more.
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And
Maybe not be so critical. Is that the thing too?
or so precious.
Precious. Yeah.
Yes. You know, so in other words, to commit to certain things and then to be able to take certain things out, to be more sort of ruthless at times too.
Yeah.
Like
That's fair.
And that allows for some of these things to emerge. Yeah. Something like that, I think is what I would say. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Margaret loves. I'll have her on the podcast eventually. Here, we'll just sort of film her.
It's probably going to become her show.
It could be. It could be. She wanted to see you big time.
Yeah.
Well, Steve. So this is. I mean, we've spoken for an hour about your career here. My last question here is, when you zoom out on your path, like what stands out for you at this moment here?
In terms of where I'm going,
Kind of, the future for the music and you know, you've got a new location here. You've got a lot more access to nature. You've got like where does the creative journey lead you? Just keep exploring, or how are you feeling about that?
in the new space, I mean, something I've explored a little bit in the last few years is working as more of a producer with other artists. So that's something collaboratively maybe I'll look at doing. I did enjoy doing that, making, you know, whether it's more in a more pop vein or whatever, but to look for sort of some opportunities to collaborate. I think that's part of it.
Yeah.
But again, on the AI front, something that's occurred to me is it sort of challenged me and maybe other artists to be more human and maybe more innovative with what we do, because currently AI is very good at copying.
Yeah.
It's not very good at innovating. So I'm trying to think of ways now, and maybe this is over intellectualizing it a little bit, but I'm trying to think of ways that I can, when I'm finishing things, like, is this, what am I trying to say? Some of it's also to do with the fact that something like Spotify allows me to hear the history of music, and particularly just everything in the genres that I'm creating in. And so I'm beginning, and with AI on top of that, I'm beginning to think, well, what am I doing am I doing something that's just going to be a part of that?
Yeah.
And get lost in it?
Yeah.
How can I do something that maybe pushes it a little bit, is innovative in some way, or at least at least represents maybe me uniquely.
Yeah, 100%.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So I'm trying to so I'm being more critical
Yeah.
now in terms of when I'm listening to things. Is it interesting enough? Is it going to stand out in some way? Yeah.
I think that's every artist right at this stage in their lives. We're trying to figure out, but you're right. Going back to where, you know, when you see a video that was created by AI, I don't have really an emotional connection to that. But when I know the human element that went behind some of these shots and what's happening, there's another layer there that I can connect to. But I'll be honest, like there's some really cool AI music out there. There's one track where they'll take hip hop songs and they'll make them into 60s. I'm like, oh, that's really cool. That sounds great. But it's there for the moment and then it's gone. I'm not feeling a connection to that where, you know, I mean, we could talk about music for a whole other session, but you know, you look at the music of the 70s when it was a protest era, the Vietnam War, and you're going, oh my goodness, what a time to be connected to music. I mean, if AI is pumping that stuff out, I don't think there's going to be a revolution that it was, but music was the revolution. It really helped drive that awareness of the war. But
Here's the thing, though. I think that AI is going to get to the point, even by, and maybe it's there already, by copying those things that you described,
Yeah.
where it is going to be able to elicit an emotional response from people. So I think the music is going to get to the point where it's going to be hard to distinguish. But what I'm saying, and what I would say to aspiring musicians or you know, young people, is that misses the point. That the point is, and we didn't even get into the other thing. I mean, in the past, I have had. So you do this thing by yourself, like what I do.
yeah,
Wait till you do it with other people. Wait till you have a moment where you're playing music as a band, and you guys suddenly vibe.
oh
like,
man,
you get into this place together.
yeah,
Oh, it's, I'm telling you, man, it's like and so can you imagine being a band that does that in front of 10,000 people?
yeah,
And they're all sharing in that? Like, I'm telling you that, like, there's nothing like, that's why these people do this into their 80s and they go tour. It's not for the money. People think they got enough money.
yeah,
It's not because of that. It's because that's the feeling, man.
yeah,
That's what it is. AI can be AI.
yeah.
It's not going to,
It will never recreate
No.
that.
And I'm telling you, that's the thing. Like that's the message. If there's anything that, you know, I've learned, that's magic is in the doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Steve, great conversation. Just really quickly for those listening, where can we find your discography and your soundscapes? And
There's
your
a-
using amazing music.
There is a Wikipedia that has the discography, but my website, subtractivelad.com,
Yeah.
is a good, like, I use it as a kind of hub.
Yeah.
And so all of the major links to all the major music services are on there. My music's pretty much everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
Spotify, Apple Music, Bandcamp, everything. All the major stuff. It's all there. And, you know, that's what's cool is these days, you know, I could go on and on about talking about it. People can just go listen. They can,
Yeah.
you know, something like This Is Subtractive Lad. You know, I have a big enough catalog where Spotify has that This Is playlist.
Okay.
And it's a great place. I actually linked to it from
I
my
know where it
website.
is. Yeah, I've got it.
And
Yeah.
people can, that's a good place to start because those are the ones that people seem to resonate with the most, at least on Spotify.
Yeah.
And it's a good place to start. Like if people want to check out what I've been doing for the past 20 years, it's so weird. I can't believe that it's been that long.
I know.
Yeah, it's bizarre, but yeah. So those are good places to start, and I might even start doing some YouTube stuff again. We'll see.
Yeah.
It's kind of how much time. I'm beginning to think maybe I'll do some meditative guitar things. There's a lot of that happening already, but maybe if there's something, again,
Yeah.
unique that I can bring to it.
And I'm here to help.
something.
You know that.
Oh yeah, awesome.
I got some tools here if you need them.
Yeah.
Okay, Steve. That was a fun conversation. I noticed when we were talking, there's a few other topics where it's like we go on walks sometimes and just kind of go off on tangents, which is fantastic. But maybe we'll record one of those one day.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot for being on the podcast. Great conversation as always, and we'll see you later on tonight with our families.
Awesome. And thanks to Margaret for.
Yeah, and Margaret for coming in. It's like coming like a wrecking ball. Holy cow, this dog! But she's a sweetie. She loves you. Okay, Steve. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having
Thanks
me.
for listening.
Cheers, brother.